Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the Season of Discovery's Scarlet Enclave, World of Warcraft Classic's first brand new raid content ever. Okay, first up, Balnazzar. Balnazzar is a 3-phase fight. The first and third with him firmly planted on the ground, and the second with him circling through the air, kind of like Onyxia. First up, we're going to be looking to drag Balnazzar on pull to the gates of Tyr's Hand, because we want the time that he takes to run from where you're tanking him to his takeoff point to be as far as possible, to give the raid a big burn window to shorten that second air phase.
Nice.
Okay, phase 1. We're going to have the raid spread because he'll cast Carrion Swarm on players, dealing shadow damage to everyone around the afflicted player. Spreading out will minimize the damage that goes out, so we do it. However, we do want to make sure we stack in pairs because of these little shades of Balnazzar that will do damage to you unless you've got a buddy nearby, so pick a friend and stack with them to prevent that damage. Every so often, Balnazzar will also summon Screeching Terrors, adds that you'll want to have your off-tank pick up and cleave with the boss. These guys also will occasionally fear players, so Tremor Totems, Fear Wards, anything to prevent that, as getting out of position here can be an issue. This is a 1-second cast and can be interrupted, so try to if you can manage. Okay, at 70%, Balnazzar will rush to the center of Tyr's Hand and fly up into the air, shrouding the entire area in darkness and silencing the raid. To prevent this, we'll sidle up to one of these 4 priests who channel a light spell, dispelling anyone nearby of the silence. Balnazzar will fly around in circles over the priests, so we'll have all of the ranged DPS focus the boss while the melee deal with the shades that continue to spawn. It's critical that the tanks grab these guys and be sure to tank them outside of the light circles, as if the shades enter them, they will enrage. It's possible to trank shot the enrage, but it's better to just not let them enrage at all. Additionally, players will occasionally get mind controlled by Balnazzar, so we'll look to CC them when they are, with Sheep, Hunter Trap, anything to stop them from hurting the raid too much. Also, try not to blender them with the adds. Warriors, I'm talking to you. You'll want everyone alive for the rest of the fight. This phase is frantic, so save any DPS cooldowns that you have for this, and work to drop Balnazzar to 40% as fast as you can. The raid should spread out in small groups, electing to use 3 or even all 4 of the circles to avoid splashing the Carrion Swarm that he continues to do too much, and hopefully you're burning him quick and he lands at 40%. One thing to note, it is possible to spread far enough within these circles so the Carrion Swarm doesn't splash to people in the circle themselves. Just try to hug an edge and avoid being on top of anybody else. Alright, at 40%, we continue with what we've set up for phases 1 and 2. The darkness still shrouds the raid, so we need to stick close to those priests, but Balnazzar has a new trick up his sleeve in the addition of Infernals. Every 20 seconds or so, Balnazzar will drop an Infernal on the head of one of the priests, killing them and removing that source of light for your raid to use. So you'll need to move around the room to one of the remaining priests and huddle together for safety as you burn him down. The Infernals themselves have an immolation aura that deals damage to anyone standing nearby, but also provides some light for the raid, enabling you to cast. You'll want to avoid this as best you can while the priests are still alive, but if the phase should last longer than 1:20 and you run out of priests, your casters and healers will need to hug the Infernals to be able to do anything. Don't worry about killing these, just kill the terrors and the boss. The Infernals have too much HP to burn through. If you've done damage effectively, dealt with the adds, didn't kill each other in the mind control, Balnazzar should go down at 5%, and you're well on your way to clearing this instance.
Sleep.
Okay, Balnazzar's dead. We now get jailed by the Scarlet Crusade. One thing, while you're in this jail cell, there's a gnome in here named Visnit the Scoundrel that is looking to be freed, and if you have a rogue with 305 skill in lockpicking, using those dark leather gloves, that once freed will tell you where to find a chest with the lucky doubloon inside. A nice little RNG trinket, so plan ahead. Alright, we've now got Beatrix next, a neat little Final Fantasy IX reference. Beatrix is unique in that she's aided by various captains scattered around New Avalon, each of which offer her help in the boss fight. There are 6 of these, and as you leave the jail, if you talk to this Night Elf NPC, he'll inform you which 2 are empowered for that week. More on that in a second. Okay, so how this works. You'll need to go around eliminating all 6 of these to summon Beatrix, but only 4 of the 6 will be active depending on the order that you kill them in. 2 of them, the empowered ones, will always be active for that week, depending on what the Night Elf says, but of the remaining 4, whichever 2 of these that you kill first will not be active during the fight. So let's say you have the Cannon Master and the Shield Warden empowered, you go to kill them, they'll run to Beatrix before they die and aid her. Then you've got 4 left: the Priest, Cardinal Stilts, Bowmaster Puck, Knight Captain Fratley, and Arcanist Hilda. Whichever 2 of these you kill first will be removed from the fight. I'm going to recommend you kill the Priest, as his abilities are pretty nasty, as well as the Knight Captain who commands the cavalry lines that can be pretty difficult as they'll bounce you around. But your raid's opinions might differ, and the meta is not settled here, so plan ahead and choose wisely. Regardless, let's get into Beatrix and see how she works. On pull, you'll enter the center of New Avalon, and Beatrix will call for her soldiers to surround you. This is a 2-phase fight, the first an onslaught of adds. The armies of the Scarlet Crusade will attack the raid for 3 minutes, and at around the 3-minute mark, Beatrix herself will enter the fight, and you'll have to deal with her and all of the soldiers that she's got as well. Now she's got a 7-minute total enrage timer, 3 of which she won't even be active, so once she's up, you'll really have to blast her to get her dead before she gets big and red and wipes the raid. First, each wave of adds will be a mix of all of the armies. I'd recommend you focus the mages and the priests. The pyroblasts hit really hard, so interrupt and get them down as quick as you can. From here, just cleave what's up and keep the battlefield as empty as possible to prevent yourself from getting overwhelmed. Okay, let's talk about what each of the captains do. First, the Cannon Mistress. Every so often, she'll fire large cannonballs into the battlefield, leaving giant red circles of flame on the ground that you'll need to move out of. These do initially target players, so do your best not to stand in the direct center of the room, as if the flame is down here while you get a mage call, you're gonna have a bad time. Speaking of mage, leaving Arcanist Hilda up will occasionally create a giant meteor at the center of the room that slowly descends to the ground. This does a ton of damage that you'll need to soak with your raid. Everyone should run to the center and soak it as it lands, and then respread quickly to avoid any other splash damage from hitting the raid. Onto the cavalry from Knight Captain Fratley. We'll see lines of cavalry run across the raid with small gaps in the formation. Look to weave between these as best you can, as if you get hit, you'll get launched across the room and possibly out of position, so watch it. On top of this, Shield Warden Stein enables the lines of footmen. These slowly move across the field in a formation, and if you get hit by these, you'll take a bleed that does 6% of your max HP every second for 5 seconds. Now this isn't too bad, but try to avoid them as best you can, as any extra damage could lead to a death due to something Beatrix does later in the fight. Okay, we're almost done. Bowmaster Puck will call for all of the archers to fire a volley of arrows into the raid. This one isn't that bad, and I would recommend you try to leave him up if you can, as it's pretty manageable. And finally, the Priest. This guy puts a stacking slow on the raid that ramps up quickly, and then at the end of the call, fires a big Zeliek-like Holy Bolt that chains if you're near other players, so you're going to want to spread out. This one we think is the hardest of the 6, so work to eliminate him pre-fight if you can. Okay, on to Beatrix herself. 3 minutes into the fight, she's going to activate and rush into the fight. Have your tank pick her up, and your DPS should immediately start in on her, as the DPS check is tight, so get to work. Every so often, she'll cast Unwavering Blade on her target, doing 51% damage to the target and applying a 25-second debuff that increases holy damage taken by 100%. Whenever this hits your tank, you'll want to swap to your off tank to help mitigate that damage done, which is a pretty simple tank swap mechanic. On top of this, every 45 seconds or so, she'll run to the center of the room and cast Stock Break. As far as I can tell, the targets are picked at random, but 3 players will be chunked down to 1% of their HP, putting them dangerously close to death. Ideally for each of these, you're going to want to have a warrior cast Rallying Cry right after it goes out, so you don't have someone die to a random instance of small damage, but do your best not to let people tick out here. It's super dangerous, and you're going to need everyone alive to beat her in rage. On top of that, she'll pick people at random and apply Rose's Thorn, a dot that deals damage until the player is healed to full. We've seen this mechanic before in BWL with the red modifier, so just top people up to prevent it from getting out of hand. And that's it for Beatrix. It's a super frantic fight that can sometimes feel frustrating depending on the class calls and ad wave combos. The big things here are to focus Beatrix as best you can, tank swap effectively, soak those meteors, and don't take instances of damage that you don't have to, because stock break could just insta-gib you if you're unlucky. Alright, Beatrix goes down. We move out of New Avalon proper and north, where we have the option of facing 3 bosses in any order. We're just going to start with Solistrasza because she's closest to the gate, but you can do Mason the Echo or Beastlord Alexei first if you want. Okay, Solistrasza. She's a 3-phase fight, and you're going to look to reduce her HP to 0% 3 times before she finally dies. As she phases each time, her mechanics get a bit harder, but it's not too bad. I'd recommend most groups try to get her down as soon as possible, as the loot income will help a bunch early on. Okay, so you're going to need 2 tanks. I'd recommend having your main tank on pull quickly pull her to the back of the room facing the wall. From here, you'll see small yellow circles on the ground. Look to avoid them, as if you're in them when the effect lands, you'll take some damage, which can be easy to avoid. Every so often, she'll cast Tarnished Breath on her current target, applying a 30-second dot that deals 10% of the target's HP every second, and this does stack, so you want to take 2 stacks and then swap to avoid it stacking too high and becoming unhealable. Additionally, every 40 seconds or so, she'll fly up into the air and then dive bomb toward the raid. Run away from where she's going to land, or you'll take some damage and get stunned and knocked back. It's super easy to avoid. On top of all this, she'll periodically summon light forged whelps. These guys are kind of tricky, as when they die, they will explode, dealing a large amount of damage to the raid. And if all 3 die at the same time, it's enough damage to kill everybody. We'll be looking to burst one of the whelps down super fast, let the explosion go out, and then after 30 seconds, the remaining 2 are going to die automatically. This is the largest instance of raid damage in the fight, so look to pop Rallying Cry or Barrier here at this 30-second mark from their spawn to mitigate some of the damage and prevent the raid from getting trucked too hard. Finally, one player will be targeted with this big yellow circle. After 5 seconds, she'll turn toward that player and cast Crimson Flare wherever they were, leaving a big circle of flame on the ground. That player needs to work to move towards the wall before it goes out so as to drop it in a safe spot. As this lava is placed, the raid will take a dot called Blistering Vent, dealing a large amount of damage over time. This needs to be healed through, but only lasts 10 seconds, so do what you can to keep yourself up during this window. If the whelps are dying as this is going out, it can be pretty spooky, so health stones, health pots, anything to survive this damage is huge. One last thing, she'll cast Cremation, firing out big yellow circles that once they land will drop fire on the ground that will eventually despawn. However, at the moment this can be kicked, TBD if that remains, but for now just kick it and avoid the extra damage. And that's really it. Reduce her HP to 0 3 times and boom, down she goes. Collect your loot and move on to Alexei the Beastlord. Alright, Solistrasza down. Next up, Beastlord Alexei and his bear pet, Sir Dornell. These guys share a health pool, so you'll see some strategies to cleave them. It's a bit higher skill, so I'm going to recommend that you don't do that here, but it is an option. Okay, so first, similar to 4 Horsemen, both Alexei and the bear will throw out a mark type debuff on the 5 closest players to each of them. Alexei applies Enkindle and the bear Enervate. Each of these apply a small dot and increases damage taken from fire and nature sources respectively, so you'll be looking to take no more than 2 of these before you make sure that you're not the closest to whatever enemy was applying the mark to you. I'd recommend your tank and melee take 2, then move the enemies together, the tanks taunt the other mob, and then move back to where they were a second ago, enabling the other group to take the mark that you just were, and eventually allowing your original marks to fall off before the dance continues again. These go out every 16 seconds, so be aware of the overlap here. Outside of that, let's go over what each enemy does. Alexei will cast Entangling Shot on the current target, dropping a green circle on the ground. After a few seconds, the shot will trigger, rooting anyone standing inside. Look to avoid this as you want to be mobile on this fight, but it's not the end of the world if you do get hit by it. Additionally, Alexei will throw immolation traps around the room. When a player triggers these, they'll take some fire damage and create a massive fiery ground effect that you'll want to avoid. It's not a gigantic deal to trigger these, but make sure you don't take the subsequent fire damage on the ground. That will kill you. Finally, Alexei will cleave enemies in front of him with Rending Slash, applying a bleed on the tank. This isn't super dangerous as you'll be swapping them back and forth, so just make sure not to get cleaved. Alright, onto the bear, Sir Dornell. In addition to Enervate, he'll cast an AoE stun called Stomp that stuns the targets for 3 seconds, every 30 seconds or so, and deals some damage, so watch for that. He'll also cast Wild Aperture about every 30 seconds, creating a snake of small green dots on the ground that erupts after a second or so, dealing fatal damage to anyone standing on them. Okay, so there's some shenanigans here with a fence that is possible as of writing this guide, but if I had to guess, this will be patched. Who knows? But doing this fight the normal way, we're looking to avoid the traps and the wild fissures, swap the bosses back and forth every 30 seconds or so to avoid stacking the Enervate and Enkindle too high, and working hard to keep the tanks up through the damage each enemy does from the bleeds, stuns, and various marks that go out. This fight is a lot of individual responsibility from players, making sure not to allow the marks to stack too high, avoiding traps, and watching your feet. It's not too terrible, just play smart, swap those bosses when the time comes, and down they go. I want to give a quick shout out to Lucenia, Simonize, and Arcos. If you're looking to track their prog, I've linked their streams and some of their YouTube videos below. Guys, I appreciate you lending me your footage for your raids this week, it helped me a ton. Alright, and that's it for part 1 of this guide. I'll have part 2 in the coming days for the back half of the raid, so make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see that in your feed, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.